Hello, Star Wars fans. We are back with another episode of the Starlight Podcast. We took a week's hiatus for a breather. We had some stuff going on. As you can see, we are missing one of our dear members of the pod, Jonathan Bates, aka Daddy Sheev. Heart of the podcast is moving. He is relocating to another city, farther away from me, which is a little bit disappointing. But we've got the dynamic duo, the dyad in the Force, not to be confused with dyad in the Force, our other friends, but Lord Dagovere's here.
Yo, let's go. How you guys doing today? Let's go.
After that prolonged intro, we're gonna get into it. We've got some big Star Wars news coming up in the
Yes.
past couple of days. Some leaks, some rumors. So what we say and what we were talking about, take it with a grain of salt. It's not official. Nothing's official, but there are it's heavily rumored, and there are a bunch of articles talking about Hayden Christensen and him looking to return as Darth Vader.
Yeah. And what he says is if the powers that be decided a Vader spinoff is something they wanted to see, I'd be there in a heartbeat, 100%. I would love to. Very interesting. As for me, you know me, and we talk about this all the time about the idea that Star Wars is a buffet. So if you want vanilla ice cream and M&Ms, no one's going to judge you for eating that all day.
Damn
All
right.
right. So my question is, you know me, I'm a Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker fan. He's my boy. But as someone who probably enjoys other characters, how do you feel about a Vader series and potentially Vader being watered down and maybe used too often?
That's exactly where I was going to go with it. I love Darth Vader. Darth Vader is the character that I think gets a lot of people into Star Wars. He's iconic, especially in my head. I think of Empire Strikes Back, him with his fight with Luke. That is what's ingrained in my memory watching Star Wars as a child. And the thing about Darth Vader is we don't know that much about him. Obviously, when we first see the movies, he's very mysterious. Then we get to learn more and more about his backstory. But the time period from episode three when he becomes Darth Vader and when we see him, um, for a while was nothing basically other than comics, books, and that stuff, which like a majority of casual fans would not really
Hmm.
read and acknowledge. So it was crazy to see him in Kenobi, in Rogue One, like all of that, get those hints. But to me, Darth Vader, I love his mysticism and the mask is we don't really know what's going on with him. So I think they have to be very careful with this specific show. There's tons of material that they can take from actual canon right now and legend stuff as well. We've got so many comics, we have so many books that kind of go into the psyche of Darth Vader that I think that they could do a really, really cool job with this. It just has to be almost, I think, like it has to be a character piece almost where it's not just him destroying everything, which for me is awesome, but I love the psyche of characters, what's going on when there's nobody around. Like that is where I think they would have to take that show to make it peak Star Wars.
Yeah.
I know you may have a different opinion. You love everything Anakin Skywalker, everything Darth Vader. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, except this guy killing children. All right. And,
Of
and
course. Yes, yes,
choking out
yes,
his
yes,
wife.
yes, 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 yes.
uh,
Disclaimer, we do not approve of the things that Anakin did at the Jedi Temple
my
and
gosh.
beyond.
And the death. Yeah, exactly. You got it. So, all right. So here's my take. Yeah, I definitely feel like Vader is overused to a certain point. But if you're going to tell me that there's a Vader movie coming out and it's going to be 9 out of 10 and or level quality and production and or level writing, you better give me that shit yesterday. You know, and even I think people that like have this really really big issue with like, oh no, the Skywalker is, oh my god, no, like I hear what you're saying, but I think even them would be very hard to hesitate to accept something to that level of quality. My honest question is, why is it taking so long? This is Darth Vader. And honestly, I think there's a pretty large amount of people, a part of the fandom, especially movie only fans, that are very hesitant to really watch a lot of the new stuff just because maybe they've been hurt in the past. A lot of the some of the projects aren't necessarily consistent with quality, and I think there's a lot of basically like fair criticism that goes around, and we're not talking about harassment, of course. But if you're telling me that there is a Vader show that could possibly redeem and maybe win back a lot of these fans, why is it taking so long to make? It is Darth Vader. He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, villain in cinema history. And I believe that if you do this guy correctly, with Vader being Vader, because even though Vader is represented so much in the expanded universe and the current Star Wars lore, I do not think Vader is correctly represented in modern Star Wars, especially Empire Strikes Back Vader, where he's so witty, so graceful in this way, very tactical. I feel like we do not get that elegant type of villain that we were so used to seeing in the original trilogy at all. And I think that's something that they can probably try to lean on and maybe execute to the ability of Andor if they wanted to get it done.
Yeah. What? So, do we know what time frame that this would take place in? Do we know anything, or it's just like him just saying about the Vader project?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone, and I don't, because I haven't read any articles. I just see whatever is trending on, the For You page, what people are talking about. I'm sure someone just asked him, "Hey, would you return for a Vader series?" That's probably it.
Where would you want it to take place? What time frame?
Definitely, I would say somewhere. I like to see Prime Vader. I like to see peak Vader going on. Like, yeah, why not? Let me know what's going on. Like, I think right after A New Hope, right before Empire Strikes Back, is a very good time to have a lot of this stuff. You have the Vader comics. We see what Vader's doing. You have the Vader books that are going on, especially the new one that's going to be coming out by your boy Adam, who just made Shadow of the Sith, which is one of the best freaking new canon Star Wars books and one of my favorite Star Wars books. He knows Anakin. He understands a lot of those struggles, and I can't wait to see that book. But I mean, with everything that you were talking about, almost 40 plus years of expanded universe that we've seen, both new and old books and comics, you're telling me that you can't make a single one-off story that literally doesn't have anything to do with all of the other stories that are happening in the continuity of Star Wars, that you can't make one single 2.5 hour banger of a movie with Vader going out and needed to take care of business because this one thing is going on and he's the only one that can do it. There's got to be something. That's where I want. That's what I want.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they put the level of effort that they can into this show, they will make so first off, they'll make so much money for themselves. But
Exactly.
that's the biggest thing that the the talking heads at Disney care about is that this project will be successful. But I think the creators could have a field day with this. And if they get the backing, it could be incredible. And it's just something that it makes me hesitate because of specifically with Kenobi, like that show to me it was not of the quality that it should have been.
Mm,
We saw some really cool stuff with Vader, especially with his psyche, with Hayden in the suit actually, and we get his like, you didn't destroy Anakin Skywalker, I did. Like that stuff is awesome. But like the rest of that show to me fell flat. That I
yeah.
was locked in with Vader when Vader was on the screen and Kenobi was,
Yeah.
obviously talking about Vader, all that stuff, but the rest of it fell short. And they need to pick that aspect of shows up for it to heighten the quality of the entire project because I would say almost every single Star Wars project has moments where you're like, "Oh, this is awesome. This is great, great, great stuff." But the rest of the show has to pick that up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I feel like if it's a show, I'm not interested.
Okay.
I'm not interested
I was
because
just
I've
I was just assuming
yeah,
that it's a show just because
yeah.
I mean
I'm not
that's all we've
interested in a
gotten.
show. No, no, it's Darth Vader. This is the franchise in my opinion. Like I truly believe that if Darth Vader is not as successful as he is with cinema, I'm not even sure Star Wars is around after the original trilogy, maybe even after Empire. Who knows? Of course, Star Wars was so successful, so of course it's going to be around. But Vader is just so. Well, look at this guy back here. Like it's just everybody, even that's not a fan, knows who Darth Vader is. You know, like I'm really big on branding in general and how recognizable stuff is. Like people recognize Pikachu more than Jesus Christ, or Mickey Mouse, and it's just the raw truth. Like same thing with Darth Vader. Like that this is the guy, even if you've never seen Star Wars, right? My thing is again is just how eloquently you can manifest this character into being. Because yes, is a solo Darth Vader story going to be powerful enough to you're going to have to listen to him breathing the whole entire time. You're going to have to
Oh
listen to
yeah.
everything that he's saying the entire time. So there needs to be supporting cast characters. You're going to need Imperials, you're going to need villains. What's he going to do? Who is he going to fight? Where is he going to go? This isn't just anybody. This is the Emperor's dog that he's allowing to go off the leash and do his thing. And yeah, is I just feel like while there are so many concerns about how you can execute this character's story and his character arc, I still believe that the potential just outweighs every single risk that you're going to take. And if you decide to make it a show instead of a movie, it's dead on arrival, in my opinion, because everyone is going to label Kenobi. Everyone's going to label Acolyte. Everyone's going to label Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, And again, I'm not hating these things. It's just like that is the type of radicalized criticism that you're going to face immediately right off the gate before this thing even launches. So it needs to be a movie. It needs to be a movie. Make a popcorn box, get it in there. Let's go compete. Get this thing, I think, when it really can get its writers and execute correctly, this is probably making $600 in at the very least. Yeah,
Mhm.
600 million in terms of I feel like at the least it's making that.
Yeah, we've never actually gotten a story from the point of view of Darth Vader in like
In live action. I don't
in
think
live
so. No.
action. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Obviously, like there's books, there's comics, but like that's an angle that most fans probably have not seen. He's always been this like opposition and this like character that we don't know anything about. So I mean, they have a real opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that would be really cool to have a story from the point of view of Darth Vader, what Darth Vader has to go through on a day in, day out basis, the inconveniences that all of his own decisions have caused him.
Yes.
That is even the breathing. You mentioned the breathing itself. The breathing itself can be an annoyance to the viewer. It's an annoyance to Vader himself because he has to go through that. So they could make a point of like this is what he has to live through. So the viewer understands like all of these decisions that Anakin made for himself, he has to face the consequences of it. Now he has no one left.
You are giving me chills, my guys, because like there are things that I think about Darth Vader is probably one of the most tragic characters I think in all of fiction. I really only think there's only a couple characters up there that are probably more tragic than his, and I always think about Gollum. I always think about Guts from Berserk, and I think Anakin Skywalker is right around that realm, right? Of course, there's more, but to me, it's those characters are kind of like on the of the Mount Rushmore of tragedy, and why can we not have a movie where this guy is all of a sudden hearing Padme's voice? Why can we not have a movie where this guy is seeing younglings in his head that the dark side made him comfortable enough to say, like, hey, you actually did them a favor? I'm not saying show that, but I
Right.
think there's a level of pain and sadness and sorrow that we can show to show Vader. And it's not about being vulnerable or weak. It's about how this guy literally has to convince himself every step, every breath that what he did was the right path. And I think that's the whole point of him. And I think that's the message that the show should be showing when this guy is just absolutely destroying everybody in his path, including himself at times. That this is why when you watch Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, what makes his character arc so special, that even everything that he went through, that only this was the right moment where he was able to finally realize he effed up, you know? And I think that's just a portion of what a movie like this can do. I can go on for days about potentially like where you can go with it, but I'm very curious to see like what would you want out of this Darth Vader movie. If this is what you're getting and this is all you're getting, outside of whatever story you want to be told, what do you want from this story that you can't get from the comics or books?
I mean, that's a great question. Like, what could there be? I mean, like I said, I am all about the internal struggle for Vader. That's what compels me. It compels me to like love him as a character, and just me like imagining being in his shoes, like all of that stuff that he did, that he has to face it, like him just shoving that down and facing
Damn.
all of those consequences every single day. Like you said, every single step he has to live, every single breath he takes, he's reminded of the mistakes that he's made, and his failure, whether it be to the Jedi, whether it be to Obi-Wan, his wife, or to Palpatine, which Palpatine reminds him every single day. I think they could take a really cool route with Palpatine being almost like that main threat to him, basically,
Hmm.
where he's always torturing him, he's always threatening him, he's always belittling him. Um, and I don't know exactly what they could do with an actual opponent where we see him have to fight. You see him have to. We've seen like Momin, like resurrected Sith, come back,
Hmm.
but I think some sort of like dark side evil, almost like almost unkillable force at a certain point. That's like on it. Like I don't think like a fight with like a Jedi will do it for me. Do you know what I mean? Like
No, I do not want to see him fight any Jedi light
yeah,
sided user. I think this is all right. So there's a couple good stuff that comes from Legends, and I think that you can use this on top of mixing a little ingredients with some Charles Soule, and I think that there's some really awesome components that came from a few stories. One of them is the Ninth Assassin, which is a very meh Legends comic, but there's this really interesting part of like the dynamic between Sidious and Vader, which I think probably is where Charles Soule got the relationship ideas from what happens in the comics that we see, because how abusive Sidious
yeah,
is, of course, and the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which goes into it really well, talking about the Shadow. Only the Shadow understands Vader now. The Shadow is the Emperor. He's always been around, And I was thinking about the idea of bringing Natalie Portman back for Visions, just like
yes,
we see in the canon. But like it would be so different to the point where Vader is almost in this haunted house the entire time, and the voices that he hears is not only his own pain and sorrow, but eventually could be twisted to seen as Sidious's dark side, essentially influencing him to continuously feel this pain just like he does, just like he did in the prequel trilogy of him getting injected into visions of Padme dying, and stuff like that. Or Sidious talking to him across space, to let him know, like, my apprentice, like all this crazy, seductive, nasty, abusive mental shit that he goes through every single
yeah,
day. And I do believe that it should probably be some sort of dark side nexus
yeah,
esque type of okay, there's the dark side of the force, and there's this other stuff that's also happening, and maybe it's a potential threat to Vader and the Emperor. I think there's a lot. I can go so much more about the ideas of this stuff, but I think you're getting the idea of this probably dark slash horror, suspense thriller, and Vader basically going through the winds of one day in this guy's life, which is so tragic.
yeah. It's yeah, a day in the life of Vader. The stuff you talk about with Palpatine, because I think, like I said before, he's imperative to a Vader story because he's the one that manipulated him. He's the
Yeah,
one that not forced him to do this stuff, but is a major influence in him making these decisions. And
absolutely.
then imagine if you are him, if you're Vader and this person that you trusted since you were 9 years old is manipulating you, doing all of these things, and then you do all the stuff, you fail him when you get defeated by Obi-Wan, and then he hates you.
Yeah,
Every single step of the way, he tortures you, hates you, all that stuff. You are truly alone in the
yeah,
universe.
yeah,
And that's, and imagine him talking in your head as you're doing things across the galaxy, kind of like he does to Kylo Ren in the
yeah,
sequels, where he is Darth Vader's voice, he is Snoke's voice, he's all these things, can like manipulating him. I mean that connects to the sequel trilogy as well too. Like that's a power that he would have. So, um, I think that's a really, really interesting topic to kind of cover for that.
Yeah, I think it should delve into a lot of that. And I actually kind of think the opening scene should probably be Vader being abused by Sidious.
Yeah.
Like just like I'm not saying get him like throw him toss him around like freaking Book of Boba Fett did with Boba Fett and his underwear, which is not something that I wanted to see.
Right.
I think there's other ways that you can express vulnerability without it diminishing the character and or the aura of the character, as all the young kids say today, right? You know, so like I think that Return of the Jedi and seeing Luke get absolutely shocked by Sidious is a very powerful perspective, and then you see how Vader is supposed to handle that every day of his life. I think that victims of abuse, I think, are very susceptible to the pain, and maybe that's why they're attracted to characters like Vader because they see that type of suffering and manipulation that Vader has, and they see that kind of represented in Vader, which is why I essentially liked Anakin. And I think when you see Luke susceptible to that in that instance, that very small portion of Return of the Jedi. But this is something maybe perhaps Vader has had to deal with every single day ever since he lost Padme. The canon comics, 2015 comics, that's like one of the first things they show is like right after Revenge of the Sith ends. This is like Vader just starts throwing hands to the Emperor, and then the Emperor is like, "No, son, you are not on this level anymore." you know,
Yeah.
and I think that is, I think just to show how strong Vader is, you also have to show everything that he has to go through every day on top of the beatings that he takes, and he's still a tank. Like he's still just pushing it and going and just putting the team on his back no matter what, and secretly hating the Emperor, but he knows he can't do anything because he's not strong enough to do that, and this is his life. It's like,
Oh.
yeah, it's like
And he's still top two in the galaxy,
and
right?
he's
Like
still
he's still
top two in the
top two.
galaxy, bro. Like that's why I love this character. But it's stuff like that. Maybe it is because like I'm an abuse victim, whatever. But like I think that, and of course, this is not excusing what Vader does or goes through, right? It's just to understand that level of manipulation and abuse that he suffers, the mental nonsense that he has to go through every single day to hurdle himself up. This guy is literally a Stubbs in a in a back to tank trying to get up every day with
Yeah.
Vinay putting him together, but I think that is just a portion of the idea of to show the weight that this guy has on his shoulders every day to put on the suit and absolutely start annihilating all of the enemies of the Empire, whether it's light side or also dark side, renegade dark side, force users. I was talking a little bit out on my stream. I don't even know if you got to that point about it.
I I didn't get to that point. No, no, no.
So I may have wrote this like silly story like 3 years ago. And it was just the idea of basically Vader going to Lehone, which, from Bane Path of Destruction. That's where Bane goes, and that's where the Rakata War, that's where he finds Revan's holocron. It's a very important Star Wars planet because the dark side of the Force runs so powerful. It also happens to be an extremely dangerous area of space to the point that nobody's going over there unless they're like someone like on the level of Vader's piloting skills, because there's just so many anomalies, so many like conflicts of getting over there, nebulas, black holes, wreckage, because not the Death Star, the Starforge wreckage is also there surrounding the planet too. And I think that you could probably have a wellspring of the dark side of the Force. I'm not saying it's the Rakata or anything like that, but maybe perhaps someone else has decided to take shelter there and is maybe trying to scrap up the Starforge or build parts of the Starforge or use whatever wreckage that's still there from the Mandalorian Wars that no one really knows about. And I think maybe this thing is also surrounded by space wraiths and star weirds and stuff like that because something is calling them all there. And I think Vader would be the person to go and fix this out and see whether or not the Emperor has to go there himself. So I think that would be really cool. See Vader with some Death Troopers, maybe some Royal Guards, a Star Destroyer of his own, and see what happens when all these people start getting possessed by the dark side of the Force, and Vader just has to take care of business.
Yeah, because I think Vader's so powerful that it's tough to have him like a physical battle. It's got to be like with the Force or
Yes.
with he has to use his mind and his strength
Yeah.
inward to be able to defeat that. Those are some of my favorite like story beats where like these characters are so strong that they only like they have to figure something out where their strength doesn't help them as much.
Yes. 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 And it's not necessarily about Vader getting his ass beat. It's just about there's this Rocky quote I always think about from the Balboa movie, and that's like, how hard you can get hit and keep going. And I think that is really kind of like Vader manifested in words,
Mhm.
because he is this more machine than man person, but he's still a boy trapped in a suit, and it's really crazy that this guy can still just take all these hits and still get up. Like, God, I love Return of the Jedi, where this guy, he cuts off his arm, his lightsaber falls down the shaft, and he just gets back up. Like he just gets back up. He just gets back up, and then he kills the Emperor after that. Like it's just like,
Mhm.
like this dude is a freaking tank. And even when you think he's done, he's like the Undertaker, just sits up again and then just gets up and does his work like it's nobody's business. It's just like 84, don't stretch. He shows up ready, you know.
Dude, you're speaking my language. We got some Rocky references. I live in Philly. Like,
I
let's
know,
go.
I know.
Your target audience is reached right here. I'm locked and loaded for a new Vader show.
Yeah.
He's also, I mean, we are going to see Hayden Christensen in Ahsoka season
Yes.
2.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see if we'll get any Vader in Ahsoka season 2, like any flashbacks of Vader. Because when we see is Ahsoka's in the world between worlds in that show. What is that? What is that area that she's in where she sees Hayden
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Anakin?
it's World Between Worlds. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's definitely World Between Worlds. I think that a lot of people have their interpretation of what it is. To me, it's World Between Worlds. It's Anakin Skywalker, the son of the Force. He's literally space Jesus. He can do what he wants. He's
Yeah.
practically a god. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, she wasn't dead." Okay, I think you're you're fine. You can believe that. To me, I think there was enough evidence there for Anakin to literally say, like, well, if you choose not to fight, you're going to die. And so this is why I'm giving you this opportunity. I literally found the power that I've wanted since the freaking prequels, so I can choose who lives and who dies when I want to, and I think it just had to be more special because it was literally his apprentice. So World Between Worlds, he revives her, and then he's following her. It's just it's a Force Ghost thing. He's the freaking space Jesus Star Wars god. He can do what he
Yeah.
wants now. Yeah, it's Anakin Skywalker, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw like flashes of Vader and Hayden go back and forth and the red lightsaber and
Hmm.
the red eyes. I wonder if we'll get anything
Yeah, pertaining to that.
or yeah, I mean it's we're gonna see Force Ghost Anakin. Obviously, we're gonna see that. Maybe flashback Anakin.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much she actually got to kind of talk to Anakin about
Yeah.
everything because I mean they met before in Star Wars Rebels and they had
Yeah.
fought like that stuff that cuts deep.
Yeah. I'm actually really curious if there's going to be a flashback that shows maybe an extension of the Mortis arc that we didn't see. Because at the end of the Mortis arc, their memories are basically erased. They don't
Yeah.
remember anything from that. But who all was there? Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So who's
Mhm.
back? And maybe Ian McGregor's back. I think there's probably going to be some type of Force Ghost party, which is probably one that we should have gotten the sequels, but it's happening in Ahsoka because it's more relevant with Ahsoka being there. So yeah, I think it's going to be Force Ghost, probably more of a memory as well. But I think it makes sense. It's not for Hayden Christensen coming back. It's for Ahsoka's story, and I think that's why it's so relevant because
Yeah.
they're like a whole clique, bro. They're the trio, man. Why not?
I agree. It's and we also see Balin's skull on the statue of the father as well at the end. So
Yes.
the Mortis arc, as weird as it was at some points and like how ethereal it is in the Force, it is very pertinent to like the story of Star Wars that we've seen. And like it's big in Ahsoka because she has the spirit of the daughter. Like that's her spirit. She's revived by the Force itself, the manifestation
Oh,
of the Force itself.
do you believe that the overlords that's what they're called, at least in
Yeah.
in the in the title? Do you think that they are gods? I do not think that they are gods.
What do you think? So, you don't think that they're like? the way that I think about it right now is like they used to be people, I think, and they've become almost like the movie Hercules, where they get ascended into this like plane of
Mm,
godhood almost. That's just thinking about it, that's the first thing that comes to mind to me. It's like, hey,
yeah.
you like Anakin had the opportunity to become the father or whatever you want to call him after that. Like he's mortal, but then he becomes something above that. So I think that is something in my head, that's the way that it works. What's your interpretation of that? I'm assuming it's not.
All right. So the most important thing that I got from this is that they all die, and gods to me do not die. Gods do not die to me. I think that they are demigods,
Yeah.
lower end gods, lower tier gods. I think there's this thing in Pokemon that we call like there's legendaries and then there's pseudo legendaries. So like pseudo legendaries are just like not as powerful as like the super omega Pokemon, what right? So I think that's what they are. And I think possibly the father, the daughter, and the son may have been extremely strong force sensitives, right? But then because of their attunement to the force, then they evolved right into this other dominion, this domain of the force, where this is now the light, this is the daughter, this is the son, and this is the father. But I believe because it says that they are overlords at the beginning, like really sets the tone that maybe they weren't always in this godhood thing, that they were humans before and they just have not ascended into this area of godhood like Force Ghosts, in my opinion, or something more, where like that's why they're able to die and get stabbed
Okay.
and then grow old. And that in my opinion has always been like that's why literally Anakin Skywalker can stab them with a lightsaber, or the Mortis dagger. So that's why I've never believed that they are just omnipotent in any way, shape, or form. They're just extremely strong.
Yeah, I think that makes more. I think that's kind of where my head was at with
Yeah.
like they ascended into something. It makes sense that they're. I mean, yeah, why would Hayden be able or why would Anakin just
Yeah.
be able to kill them with
Yeah. Yeah.
with a like a lightsaber or whatever that he used? But yeah, I think the more that Hayden Christensen is in Star Wars and involved in the fandom. He's a great person. So it's he's very interactive with the fandom. So I think the more that we are able to see him not get overused, but like he's the more that he's involved in the fandom for the is the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I mean, like, it made sense to bring him back in the sequel trilogy. I still to this day do not understand why there isn't a single Force Ghost scene with this dude on Exegol, you know. And I think it would have played even more into the role of what we see into Ahsoka because this guy is world between worlds. He's able to summon his former self at different, like he's just breaking like all types of like Force abilities that we thought were ever had. But he's chosen one, whatever. I guess that's what we're going to use, right? Batman's prep time. He's chosen one. So I don't want to get to that silly level, but sometimes it can be. But with Hayden, the thing about Star Wars is I feel like there's only so much time where these people are alive. You know, Tamora, everybody. But like, why are we not using them when we can? And it's not like he's being in every single project. I mean, this is literally his apprentice's story, and you need him to move the story in some form because now also there is a new Skywalker apprentice who is Sabine. So at the end of the day, like I think that end of that show where he's sitting there and watching both of them, I think that's really important. Like this is his. If he was alive today, he would still be doing this. Or if Anakin was alive in that moment, he would be there, just like as
Yeah.
he would be with Luke. So I think it's important. Let him bring him here. I'm not saying every episode, or every series, but I think it's important that he is at least here now because we didn't get this in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, so I am very excited to see Hayden Christensen back, and I think both of us you love Anakin. He's your favorite
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
But I think like we were talking about, the more Anakin, the better, in my
Yeah.
opinion. He
Yeah.
is Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Yeah, he's Star Wars, and as long as it makes sense, I don't want to see him in like Tales of the Underworld. Like, what, bro? What are you doing here? What's going on? So, but at least right now, it's made sense, and I didn't have a problem with it with Ahsoka. So, I think that it's fine.
Yeah. I and listen, we were talking a little bit off camera about just, kind of different projects and kind of what we want to see from the future of Star Wars, and let's just I'm down to kind of yap about what we think should happen, what has happened, what we
Yeah.
think is going to happen. What's your thought on like the status of Star Wars? We're in a break right now of Star Wars
Yeah.
projects, so they should be cooking right now, and they have been cooking for a little while trying to make these projects. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of discussion about where to go next and how do they make some sort of momentum. Because I do think that's even with like the new movies coming out, there's some excitement, but it's like, it's cautiously optimistic about what is going to happen. And I think also, though, while there's some pretty potential with these movies, at least with the Ryan Gosling one, I'm really excited about.
Matt
No,
Smith,
yeah. Oh my god. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so Matt Smith is really interesting, right? Because he was someone that was going around very similarly when Rise of Skywalker, before Rise of Skywalker, and I thought he was going to be a clone version of Palpatine.
young
So,
Palpatine, yeah.
yeah, and so if this is like a renegade Sith, which I hope he is, like do not bring this guy into this movie if he's not some type of Force dark sider of some degree. I don't need to see a Sith, but I need to see Matt Smith doing anti Doctor Who things. I would really appreciate that in the highest form. But I'm excited for that. But I think there's more stuff to talk about with like the direction of where we're going with Star Wars stories and other eras of Star Wars. And I think that discussion needs to be a topic.
Yeah. I mean, I you can go ahead. You can go ahead
Oh yeah,
and I'll chime in. What like because I mean there's a lot of projects that seem like Lucasfilm talks about and then goes radio silent. They go radio
hmm
silent. It's announced. We got an announcement for Rogue Squadron. Like
yeah.
all of these projects that like have been in the works and have been rumored, but actually some have actually been like announced by Lucasfilm that just we haven't heard from in years.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's pretty consistent with them to just like, hey, this is happening. And I'm pretty certain that it's like, all right, this was greenlit, or at the very least, we have a script. It's like you come out here and you say this is happening and then it doesn't. And in Lucasfilm's defense, they can take as much time as you want, but when there's like a slated date for a release, that's a problem. You know, because then you start to make it look like you have no idea what you're doing when the release date comes and there is no Star Wars. That is a really big problem with, I think, production in Hollywood. Like you should just not say anything. Like I thought the best way that they did this was when they brought out Ryan Gosling and they said that, hey, this is actually something that it's in production. Like we're actually going to start filming this soon. That is like the best way. And that makes me feel like they've learned from their mistakes. I wish they would have done that with the whole Ray thing because they brought Daisy Ridley out and they said that, but like there's so much around that whole maybe most of it is propaganda, but I have a lot more positivity towards the Ryan Gosling movie because it just feels like it's less of a hassle with this project than what I've heard so much with the Ray project. So I'm
It feels
excited.
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It
Go on.
it feels more real to me. Like you see
Yes.
Ryan Gosling, you see he's talking about it, he's talking about how excited he is. Whereas if it's like the producer or the writer just kind of
Yeah.
like saying it or like him or like them just like walking out and just like saying a couple things, it's
Yeah.
different now that we have an A-list actor talking about being in Star Wars and how excited they are to do it.
Yeah, and not just Star Wars. It was also like the script. Oh yeah, this is going to take place after episode 9. I'm going to be looking out for my nephew and training and then shit hits the fan. Whoa, and then now, 5 months down the road, now we have people that are being casted. So it's just like this thing is moving. It's hot right now. So I like that. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited either way. No matter what propaganda I'm going to be listening to on the internet. So I'm always going to be excited for more Star Wars.
When you say propaganda, are you talking about like propaganda for
Uh,
it,
No, against it, against
against
it.
it?
Yeah, against it. Yeah, always against it. Because I'm not necessarily someone that sees the glass half full. I just like to be realistic when it comes to these things. And movies are expensive, and the sequel trilogy is definitely not the most loved thing through a lot of Star Wars fans. Even someone like me, I feel like I have to defend a lot of Star Wars recently, just like I did with Revenge of the Sith and Hayden Christensen back in the day, just so people just don't get so out of hand because it's so easy to be negative towards things. They think you think you're criticizing it, but criticizing can so easily become hate so quickly. After, in my opinion, how many opportunities that it has to not meet the bar of like Andor.
Yeah. And you talked about that on your stream yesterday, where you have to remember like a lot of the, especially like with the kids and people that are brought up, they're going to like that movie.
Yeah.
When you're 6 years old and you're watching a movie, you're not gonna care about like all of the different plot lines and all the different like this is cool and that's gonna stick with you. And that's exactly what happened um with the prequels for a lot of us. Like that's something that you remember. And I think people should go into critiquing a movie, critiquing a project, critiquing a show with like that in mind,
Yeah.
where um if you were saying this to like your nephew who absolutely loved the movie, would it be considered hateful? Like why like what there's a difference between critiquing stuff that you could have like we all have critiques for all of these different projects, but if you're saying stuff and then you're gonna upset the little kid inside like
Yeah.
that's different. And you have people I think forget that. And also people get rewarded for hating on stuff and clickbaiting and rage baiting and all of that stuff. So that's a different discussion, but I think people should go into critiquing a movie with the fact that this is somebody's favorite.
Yeah.
If you're talking to someone who it's their favorite movie, just try not to spew hate.
Yeah. Yeah. Always. That's why I like talking to people that love The Last Jedi, even though I don't like it. It's yeah, it's really when you start to see the dynamic of how much this person really appreciates this movie, like it makes me understand, wow, I am not feeling what you are feeling, but it's so cool that you're able to feel this when I was literally depressed about it. So, it's the same thing with me, or it's like how I felt when I saw Revenge of the Sith and I thought it was like the greatest movie ever. And I was talking to my uncle and he was like, "Yeah, that was like the stupidest shit I've ever seen." It's like, "Oh, all right, cool, all right." And then
Yeah.
I tell him about the Dark Empire comics that where Luke Skywalker turns to the dark side and almost kills Han Solo, and he's like, "Nah, not my Luke." So it's a whole interesting thing. This is back in like 2005. Where all this stuff was happening. So the dynamic of the Star Wars fandom always constantly evolving towards these views. And even now, like you will randomly go on TikTok or someone will talk about how The Acolyte is like the greatest show and why would they cancel it? I do not agree with that, but I'm just so happy to see these people out there and waving their Star Wars flag, even when so many people get paid to hate on it.
Yeah. Your favorite show is Ahsoka. And
Yeah, not the best show. It
not
is
my
not.
favorite
Yeah,
show. Yeah,
exactly.
not
Yeah,
my
it is.
favorite
It is
show.
not the
So
best show, but I think it is. It is my favorite show.
but it gets me hyped to listen to you talk about Ahsoka and to listen to your takes that you're so passionate about.
Yeah,
It's that's what I love. That's why I started honestly like making videos and on social media and trying to post stuff. Like
yeah,
I started making videos on TikTok in 2020 and
yeah,
seeing people talk about like the lore that they really like and just having discussions around stuff. That's what caused me to be like, I'm into this stuff. Like let me see if I can make a video and talk to people. And that's how we connected. That's how I connected with so many other people in the community.
yeah,
And that's how Johnny and I's friendship like started too, where we were on the same floor in our college dorm and we were chatting and we were talking about sports and we were talking about Star Wars and Johnny like sparked my interest all the way back into Star Wars, like deep, deep, deep into the lore again. So
yeah,
like that's what people have to think about when they go on these discussions.
yeah. That really just makes me want to talk for the rest of the night. Honestly, is like that type of stuff. Even though we're sitting here for like an hour and a half waiting for Zoom to reset, it's like but that, in my opinion, is like what everybody gets so passionate about in Star Wars is like, let me tell you about when Luke Skywalker manipulated a black hole. Let me tell you about this time where Luke Skywalker almost died because this ghost from 5,000 years before the movies even started, wanted to possess him and kill him. It's just like stuff like that where it's like, what? That happened? Why wasn't that in the movie? What? Yeah, and you slowly start to have that curiosity of like, what's your favorite this? And you bring up a really good point about like kids not caring about story or plot or acting. I was the same way when I saw Darth Maul freaking come out the door with a double bladed lightsaber. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be him for Halloween. So it's just like one of those things. And then he was my favorite character. And same thing with like Attack of the Clones, where like in my opinion, Attack of the Clones was like the last Jedi of my era, where like everybody was like, Star Wars is dead. This was such a terrible thing. Oh my God, Hayden Christensen can't act. Jesus Christ. But then I only thought about like Hayden Christensen or Anakin Skywalker going on Tatooine on that swoop bike on that speeder with that beautiful soundtrack, and just I was just like, that vision stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
All those Jedis running out in Geonosis stuck with me forever, and Yoda flipping around. Me in the theater when I saw Yoda, I was like, what the hell? I didn't know he could do that, jumping around. Everybody was like going crazy when that happened. CGI wasn't great, but it was still like one of those things where I witnessed this for the first time in the big screen. I was like 13 years old, and I was like, what the flip? All those things is what you remember. And so someone out there was like 7 years old, 8 years old, watching the throne room in The Last Jedi is going to be like, this was the greatest thing ever. Oh my God. Same thing with Kylo Ren and Rey on the freaking wreckage of the Death Star, which I think is actually one of the most slept on duels in that trilogy. And there wasn't a lot of duels, but I think that's the better one. That would be something I would fall in love and defend that movie because of that. So I understand where the passion comes from, and I think that's how we're all connected in this and talking to it, because it's important to us like that.
You were talking about that little kid in watching The Last Jedi in the throne room.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
I was that little kid when I had the spirit of a little kid.
Yeah.
When I watched Kylo Ren, or when Rey throw that lightsaber and Kylo Ren put a
Dude.
hole in the head.
Yeah. I remember I made an edit a while ago about that scene, and I was like, everybody was talking all this stupid shit about how Rey's a Mary Sue, and even with me like critiquing the sequel trilogy, I was like, I just did not get that. I just thought that was the silliest thing. But I was also really appreciated her flaws as a character, because she's just so rageful and she was just so naive and silly. So I never saw her as like overpowered. I thought her as like naive as hell and
Yeah.
very inexperienced. And that part where she's like, Ben, and I was like, girl, you ain't talking to Ben, you talking to Kylo Ren. So even stuff, even though I dislike that movie and I dislike The Rise of Skywalker even more, there are still parts of that movie that I can enjoy, especially the end with Luke walking out there like a dog in the soundtrack, man. Did he go out the way I wanted to? I don't know why he had to die, but it's just one of those things where I can find every single piece of a Star Wars movie and appreciate it, because I grew up in that time where people hated Star Wars too.
Yeah. For me, and I'm gonna go on like
Go.
the watching the prequels, I was born in 1999, so I was like one year old when the Phantom Menace came out, and like I didn't even watch Revenge of the Sith in theaters because I wasn't allowed because it was
Yeah.
PG-13, and I was
Yeah.
like, what year did that movie come out? 2005, 2006?
Right at the 2005. Yes. I
Yeah,
was sophomore year of high school.
yeah, I was 6 years old watching. Like my mom was like, "You're not going to see that movie, okay?"
Yeah.
I lived Star Wars through the video games a lot of the times.
That's
So
awesome.
when I was a kid, I played all of the Lego Star Wars video games. I played the pod racing video game when I was a kid. I played like the Bounty Hunter games. Like all the
Yes.
Revenge of the Sith video game is how I like
Amazing.
first lived through Revenge of the Sith. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that stuff is what gives me that feeling. And when I watch when I watch the Phantom Menace, like even in some of like the slower parts, when I watch Attack of the Clones, like it gives me the feeling of me walking around as like a little Lego character, and I'm running through the droid factory, like jumping all these different things like they did in the movie. Like it's all Star Wars is a buffet, and we talk about that all the time. And every single movie means something different to everybody, and that's the beauty of it. And that's something that fans need more perspective of, especially fans in the comment sections of videos hating on everything at anything that
Everything.
anybody says.
Yeah. Yeah. I was literally just talking about that the other day. It's just how if you sent me this screenshot and asked me to tell me what side of the fandom it came from, I would not be able to tell you because criticism these days is getting so distorted into legitimate hate and trendy, let's hate this thing. And I, for one, I'm getting really sick and tired of the Dave Filoni hate, especially when it's coming from the positive side of the Star Wars fandom. Like I just saw a post the other day that was like, Dave Filoni is if George Lucas wasn't talented. Like I thought that is probably one of the most like bogus things I've ever heard from any Star, and it comes from someone who claims to be a positive Star Wars creator, someone that loves the High Republic, someone that likes all the new Disney stuff and loves the new Disney canon. And I'm not saying criticism is bad here, but like to the point that you're literally shitting on a dude that probably inspired you to get into Star Wars, who's been literally making Star Wars stuff probably since before you were born. I think is just so crazy that all of a sudden this criticism now because maybe you dislike Ahsoka or don't like that Dave Filoni is bringing in characters from the Clone Wars, which are his characters, by the way. You know, all of a sudden now this guy is a villain. All of a sudden this guy is like the worst thing ever. It's just so crazy to me that the fandom is getting to this point now that it's eating its own people.
It's so hyperbolic. And maybe it's to get views, maybe it's to, rage bait
Hmm.
people, but either way, it's not good for the fandom. There are a small group of people that I've interacted with, that you interact with in your communities and your mutuals, that are even keel and have like honest opinions
Yeah.
and critiques of things without spewing this garbage, and can appreciate things about shows they dislike. One of my favorite questions to ask people is like what's your like if someone's talking about how they hate Rise of Skywalker, what's your favorite part?
Yeah.
What's one part that if I put a gun to your head and you said, like I said, watch a scene from this show, what would you do? You know?
I'm watching the opening. I love the opening with Kylo Ren. I love the Journey to Exegol sound that's not even on the damn soundtrack. I love that part. Oh my god, I literally thought I was about to watch the greatest Star Wars movie ever.
Yeah.
I love Palpatine, dude. I don't care what anybody says about somehow Palpatine returned. I like that line. And I hate The Rise of Skywalker. I dislike the sequel trilogy a lot. And I love that line because I think it's hilarious. And I think it perfectly personifies Sidious and how stupidly powerful he is and
Hmm.
everything. And I love that stupid sound effect that they have on X. Oh, by the way, Exegol is amazing. I think Exegol is a peak planet. Oh my god, I need more stories on Exegol. Give me a sequel trilogy MMO. Let me pick the Sith cultists. I want to be on that class, man. Dude, oh my god, I love Exegol so much. Sith troopers hated them when they first came out. All of a sudden, love them. All of a sudden, love them. All of a sudden, Death Star, of course, the duel with Rey and Kylo Ren, and that's about it. But yes, it's yeah. I don't like this line that people always say from the Rose Tico stuff. Not that I hate the character. I did not like the line about the not about fighting or killing what you hate, or it's about saving what you love or something. I I'm not saying that, but I think that it's time to be a little bit more genuine. And I don't think that I think the hatred is just taking over everybody, man. That's why I don't really interact with other creators anymore, man. I just feel like everybody's got an agenda and everyone's got a mask.
Yeah, it's I I'm on the TikTok side
Yeah.
of the Star Wars fandom. You're in the YouTube side of the fandom.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen some pretty toxic things with YouTube. Obviously, I've seen some pretty toxic things
Yeah.
with TikTok. But it's just like any corner of the fandom that you go to, you'll find some of that stuff. Um,
Absolutely.
More so in some places and some channels you'll find that perpetuated. Um, but my favorite people to interact with and to connect with are people who um, actively talk about things they like, actively critique things they don't like, but also dispel hatred from when they see
Yeah.
it, and they dispel toxicity when they see it.
Yeah, because I think it's very important that you establish that fine line. This is what I was talking about. I screenshotted that quote that I was talking to you about, but I made sure that that person's username and view was not
Of
in there.
course, yeah,
Because like it's the same thing. It's like, bro, we're attacking the idea. We're not attacking the person. We're attacking the methodology. We're not attacking the person. And I think that's a really important part as of a Star Wars fan and the responsibility you hold, because this clip may go out and get 50,000 views on TikTok and may be dissected by somebody else. And then guess what? Now you're a weapon. Now you're momentum and you're fuel to the fire, whatever this person's agenda that's going to use, because you yourself may not have that following, but someone else does.
hmm
And someone else is going to make money off that post that they're going to make, you know? Yeah, but I don't think people understand that. I only think about these things because I played Knights of the Old Republic 2, and Kreia, the mentor in that game, is so very about the ripple effect. Why'd you give that homeless person money? Now they're always going to be asking for money. Why did you ignore that person? Now they're always going to feel like everybody's a piece of shit. It's like really crazy
that's
how.
really messed up. Yeah,
And it's funny because that's one thing that made me love that game so much, was like there was no right answer. And
right.
and that was like so important to me as a kid, when I was like, damn, like I thought I was gonna do this right. I saved the file, come back to make sure she said something good to me, and then she's like, why would you do that? You just robbed this person of his experience of suffering, and now he's gonna be weaker for it. She's not saying let him suffer, but she's like, dude, like you have to understand it. When you dip your toes into this river, there's gonna be a ripple effect. You
Yeah,
need to think of your choices.
I need to play. I haven't played that game, but I need
Peak.
to. Yeah,
Peak.
I need to. Yeah,
Peak, baby. All of them.
there's so much of the stuff that I haven't dove into on the legend side and like the video game side. I've played like I haven't played those like MMOs, like all
Yeah.
of those games that um you
Here.
reference them all the time.
I'll get here. How about this? So you're reading the Audible right now. Did you finish Shadow of the Sith?
No,
Okay.
I'm about halfway through right now.
So when you're done, when you have time, and there's always time. Trust me, there's always time. Whether you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning or you're done with a shorty, whatever you're gonna do. All right. I'm telling you, go on YouTube, and there's always silent playthroughs of games, whatever. And sometimes this is also where I found the first book that I listened to audiobook, which was Darth Bane: Path of Destruction, was also on YouTube a while ago. And it's like one of those things where you can like fall asleep to these things at night. And like 10 years ago, I used to do this all the time with KOTOR. Someone was just playing a random playthrough, and I was just watching it, because I didn't have a console at the time and I had played it when I was younger. And it's just like you're playing the game too. And it's just like the full unfiltered journey of this stuff. And I think that's one of the coolest things about Star Wars is like when Revenge of the Sith came out, I had this Batman DVD player that had a Batman remote. All right. And I was able to loop the entire movie. So as soon as the movie would start and finish, it would go back right where it was. So it was looping like back then in like 2006, right, when it was on physical DVD. And it was so crazy because it was to the point like every single time I woke up, oh my God, he just turned to the dark side. I can't go to bed. Okay, all right, I'm going back to bed. And then I would go to school. And so I was doing that the entire time. So I was always used to listening to Star Wars at night in some form. Then I found out about audiobooks. Then it was the video games. Like I could literally make a whole podcast section about this stuff that I was doing. But there's some magic about that and the experience that you have, I feel like, right before you go to bed and you're listening to stuff like that. I don't know, man. It is like a drug for me. I
Yeah.
always have to do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The audiobooks were like a path to infinite
Yeah.
infinite Star Wars stories, whether it be the Path of Destruction or like Shadow of the Sith, which you just
Yeah.
recommended to me. I there was a point like during COVID, after COVID, like in when I was in college, like I would listen to hours and
Yeah.
hours of audiobooks, and it was like I would just be like wanting more, thirsting for more. Like,
Yeah.
how can I get more? How can I read this book? This book? Which book should I do next? Like, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah. It's a craving, man. And I feel like it's a type of it's a type of taste that no one's ever really experienced until that moment. I didn't like reading. I hated reading, especially with my like sports background. You know, it was kind of that stuff was kind of what a nerd. You know, even though I wanted to play video games, I couldn't. Then I played video games after, and I played Halo, which was like the first real video game that I played outside of like Pokemon and a few other things. But I love the story so much that I got into books, and that's what made me realize, oh my god, like books are actually like absolutely freaking amazing when
Yeah.
you actually dive into it. And then I found out about the Star Wars stuff too, and I started doing that. And then you listen to the audiobook, and the audiobook is like an audio movie, and it's just like it's just like Aladdin. It's a whole new world. You know, it's just like crazy that the type of stuff that you're experiencing. And I think that is probably something that, I don't know, unlocks something inside your head where it's a craving. You want
Yep.
more. You know, you always want more. I don't know, man. It's hard to explain until you have to get the person to experience it for themselves.
We're looking at you, Johnny, Daddy Sheev.
Yeah,
We're looking
Johnny.
at you. If
Johnny.
you, all right, so for anybody listening, if you were to recommend one audiobook for canon, one audiobook for legends, what would you recommend them?
Mm. So one for canon, one for legends. Man, that's so crazy.
Let's
So
say let's say I've only watched like the movies, like I've seen maybe like The Mandalorian, like just
yeah,
like nothing too in depth.
yeah. So I'm probably not going to recommend anything Old Republic just because like I think that could be a little bit too potent for somebody. So I'm probably going to recommend the novelization for Revenge of the Sith or Darth Plagueis. I think both of those go like just connect so well into the movies when you know nothing, you know, and you don't need to know anything with Plagueis because there's Sidious is in there and it'll eventually connect. But Revenge of the Sith is literally the movie, and you're
Yeah.
getting aspects of all the stuff. Those are the two Legends recommendations I would recommend. For canon, I think that I don't know, man. Shadow of the Sith is so good. I wouldn't recommend any of the High Republic stuff because again, it's the same thing with the Old Republic. You know, it's just too far out there, too many things to get involved in. But I think Shadow of the Sith is a good point for anyone that wants to get into the sequel trilogy because it's just a one-off story and it leads directly into the sequel trilogy with The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker very well.
I agree. I'm
Yeah.
about halfway into that book. Um, and the way that who's the author of that book?
Adam Sim, I can't remember his last name.
Adam Scott? No, no,
I
no.
think it is. Yeah, I think it's two first names. I think it's two. Let me see. Writer for Shadow of the Sith, Adam Christopher.
Adam Christopher. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Understood. Um, he writes Luke Skywalker very, very, very well. His inner monologues of like all of like what he's going through and his struggles with like him being Anakin or Luke Skywalker and
Yeah,
like being the legend, all of that stuff. It's very good. So I definitely that's a really
yeah,
good one-off story too.
yeah.
Um, I would recommend anybody who loves the original trilogy, Lost Stars. I love,
See,
love, 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 love Lost Stars because it takes you through the journey of the entire original trilogy.
yeah, it's so crazy to me because I can't get into that book, bro. I like
It's so
I've
good.
tried so many times and I just can't. Like I just can't. And it's so crazy too because everyone's like, "This book is amazing." This book, I just can't get into it, man. I can't get past the first few chapters with Tarkin. I can't get it. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
For those who are listening, Lost Stars is a book of two different point of views from these two from this boy and this girl who grow up together who are basically go throughout the events of the sequel or of the original trilogy. They're not force sensitive. They're just regular people who find themselves within the machinations of like the Empire or the Rebellion or
Mhm.
like they go through and there's major milestones in that book. We see the Death Star, we see Hoth, we see like the end like we see the second Death Star too. Like all of that stuff happens and it's their point of view as almost just like a normal person who decides to join these different factions, and there's some romance in there as well. So it's like a slow burn, and I think for me it was a really good audiobook to listen to.
Yeah.
Um, if you're not, it doesn't really have any Jedi stuff. It doesn't have any Force stuff really. I don't think at all, but it's just a normal person going throughout the events of, and I think that's why it hits for a lot of people because they can picture themselves in those positions. But
Yeah.
that stuff is really good. I mean, I haven't listened to that much Legends stuff, but the Darth Plagueis is the
Yeah.
shit. It is
Yeah.
so, so, so good.
Yeah.
But I also, if someone, I also like to recommend, I really like the Aftermath trilogy, but that's like kind of similar vein as the Old Republic and High
Yeah.
Republic.
Yeah.
But I also, if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, Dark Disciple is very good. It connects seamlessly with what we've seen now in
Hmm.
the other stuff, and also like Master and Apprentice is really good for a one-off if you like Obi-Wan
Master Apprentice is
Kenobi
good. Yes.
and Qui-Gon.
Yes, Master Apprentice is very good. Yeah, it's fun. Just get into one book. That's all I can say. Like if
Yeah.
you're worried, even if it's not something that goes with the movies, if you heard someone say read it, just get into it. Like just see if it's for you. You know, because I think that's the biggest part. Kind of like cold water. Just jump in.
hmm
Yeah, jump in, and it'll be so much easier.
Yeah, I tell people to start with like what's your favorite like era of Star
Yeah.
Wars, and then go from there. If you love the Clone Wars, then Dark Disciple. If you love
Yes.
original trilogy, well, whatever.
Yes.
Um,
Pick an
yeah,
era. Yeah, pick your era. Pick your movie. That's why I
yeah,
always recommend Revenge of the Sith novels because like a lot of people's movies Revenge of the Sith where I grew up around. So I was like Revenge of the Sith novels, great. Check that out. Oh, you like Return of the Jedi? Then do from a certain point of view. You know that's a
yeah.
that those are great one-off stories. You can follow the whole movie as this thing is going down, and you can read everything, which is also pretty great. So yeah, man, there's a lot. There's something there for everybody. It is a buffet, right, Connor?
You're right. You're damn right. But yeah, I think we might wrap it up here soon. We've been
Yeah,
yapping for a little bit now.
yeah, yeah,
Um, we're gonna get a live stream. All right. We're
yeah.
getting a live stream here, and we're gonna have comment sections. We're gonna have you guys get involved if you're listening.
Yes.
So we're looking to expand the brand of the
Mm-hmm.
Starlight Podcast. We're looking to get Dagovere's community involved because if you guys haven't followed Dagovere, if you guys he streams
Every Tuesday.
every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, yeah, anything that you want to leave us with, Dagovere?
Yeah, I'm excited. Just make sure you follow Connor on TikTok because we're probably going to be doing lives on there, maybe bringing people over to the stream on YouTube when it finally gets up. But hey, this is the start, baby. It's happening right now. And your boy Johnny may be sleeping, but don't sleep on this podcast, okay?
You're damn right. We're gonna end it there. May the force be with you all. Thank you so much.